Alright. This is going to be kind of makeshift. We'll see how this works out. Alright. Hi, my name is Abby Settles, and today I'm here to talk to you about my longtime family friend, Don Jenkins, and his experience with the Battle of Mogadishu, also known as Black Hawk Down. Don Settles has been friends of our family for a really long time. Our parents went to church together forever, and my sister is actually now married to his son, so he is my sister's father-in-law. Let's see if this comes up. Alright, this is actually Don Jenkins when he was younger and just got to where he was being in the military. What Don does is he is considered military intelligence, and a lot of that involves surveillancing. It's pretty much what his job does. This is him just a few years ago, so it's more recent. How Don got into intelligence was, it was during 1974, also the Vietnam War was in, and the draft was in place. However, he did not get drafted, but he felt like it was his duty to go into the military because his whole family had been in the military, so he felt like it was something he needed to do. He went in and enlisted and became an officer. Before he got accepted into the FBI Academy for Military Intelligence, he was a personnel officer for 4 years. To get into a FBI Academy program such as this, you have to do a lot of tests, he said, such as IQ tests, psychological tests, and pretty much a bunch of evaluations of you before you can do these things. He's lived in places like South Korea and Germany, and actually while he was living in Germany, his apartment got bombed by terrorists because what he does is he follows these people around looking for threats and things like that, and so one of them figured out that he was in military intelligence, so they bombed his apartment. Luckily, he was not there, so that's why he was still allowed to talk to me today. During this training, you learn a lot of things like surveillance, interview skills, interrogation techniques, and you learn to gather information about people and things without people knowing. He said his family's favorite thing he learned, he took a class on how to tell if someone is lying based on their body actions. He said his sons particularly hated this skill that he learned in his training because they could never lie to him. At the time of Black Hawk Down, Don Jenkins was stationed in Fort Campbell, which is in Kentucky. He was the commander of his unit, and he always wore civilian clothing so that people didn't know he was in the military. What he would do is he provides counterintelligence. So he would receive CIA classified message traffic about potential threats on the U.S. He communicated weekly with the FBI on things such as political issues and weather in other countries where the U.S. was looking at going into and doing a mission of some sort. He also would communicate with local and state police on threats in the town or wherever he was. So he did a lot of surveillance and learning about places that the military needed to go to. For those of you who don't know, Black Hawk Down, also the Battle of Mogadishu, happened in Somalia, and it happened in 1993, which was, now it's 21 years in July, it'll be 21 years, and last year was actually the 20th anniversary, so there was a whole bunch of new interviews done, and people actually went back to Somalia to see what had happened, and there's still a lot of bullet holes everywhere, and this is 20 years later, and all these bullet holes are pretty much from this battle. So what happened is people in Somalia were starving and becoming really famished, so the U.S. decided to send food to them, but these warlords had taken over in Somalia, and they're all, had these different sections and everything, and the food was actually taken by the warlords, and they weren't getting to the starving people. So under the Bush administration, they decided to send military in to make sure these people got this food. And then after a while, they decided they needed to capture one of the warlords named Mohammed Farah Adid. And what Don would have done is actually a week before I think he said about a week before this battle, he actually had everyone who was going on this mission in front of him, and he was telling them about the weather and what he could expect to be happening when they arrived and things like that. I don't know if any of you've seen the movie, but he was actually with Michael Durant, that, because he's a big part of the movie. He was with him a week before this happened. So Americans actually did not capture Mohammed Farah Aidid, and there were about 18 American deaths and a lot of Somalian deaths. This is actually a picture of after it happened, all these Somalian children on top of one of the Black Hawks that went down. This is a normal thing for them to do. A lot of pictures like this you'll see on the internet when you search this type of thing. Where did the button go? So when I asked Don how the Black Hawk Down event affected him, he said that things in his job became very real to him. He had always taken his job very seriously because it is very important. However, he said, he had just seen all these men that you now see in the news getting dragged through the streets and now dead on the streets. He had just seen them a week before, and he said things became really real, and it just hit home for him, and he was, really upset to know that he had just seen these people, and, he was the one that debriefed them before they went, and he said it was just crazy to learn these things. I also wanted to let y'all know how Don's doing now. This is him now. He enjoys retirement after many years after the Black Hawk Down. He was still in the FBI for a really long time after all this happened. This is actually him with his 2 youngest sons, and then over here he's missing 3 of his granddaughters, I think, and 3 grandchildren and 1 of his great-grandchildren. But he has 8 grandchildren altogether and only 1 great-grandchild. So that is Don Jenkins now, and I have a video to show y'all. So it's going to take a sec because I didn't have the smart board like I wanted, so I'm going to have to do it on the TV. Where is it? YouTube. This is going to take a minute, sorry, because I got to type it all in. Sorry. This video is pretty short, so it shouldn't take too long. I think it's about 2 minutes. This is actually one of the ones they did on the 20-year anniversary of Black Hawk Down. Excuse me. Tell me if this is loud enough for y'all.
A bullet-strewn sign welcoming people to Mogadishu 20 years ago seems to say it all. To enter the Somalian capital was to enter a chaotic landscape that had been plagued by turf wars and extreme poverty. Disturbing street scenes like this from October 1993 show Somalis gathering around the charred remains of a U.S. Black Hawk helicopter that had been shot down. In other scenes, the bodies of U.S. servicemen were seen being dragged through the streets, and eerie photos from that time were released of others being held captive. This was the Battle of Mogadishu, also known as the Black Hawk Down episode. It was one of the most notorious and ill-fated fights in recent U.S. history. The U.S. military presence started as an effort to provide security for food relief missions to a famine-struck Somali populace. But gradually the U.S. started trying to target a local warlord named Mohammed Farah Aidid, and the humanitarian intervention suddenly morphed into a fierce street battle against militant clans. After Somali militants shot down 2 U.S. Black Hawk helicopters, efforts to rescue crew members would leave hundreds of Somalis and 18 U.S. servicemen dead, with dozens more wounded. Now, 20 years after the horrific battle, the U.S. footprint in Africa has ranged from non-intervention in the Rwandan genocide during the Clinton administration to President Obama's enforcement of a no-fly zone in Libya. In some ways, U.S. military engagement in Africa is expanding. Everything from drone bases to training missions are part of the footprint. And that's because the northern part of the continent is seeing no shortage of conflict, from roving gunmen in Mali to the extremist group Al-Shabaab operating out of Somalia. But while these engagements represent a ramp-up of sorts, the strong U.S. reluctance to put boots on the ground to counter these threats is still influenced by the battles in Somalia 20 years ago. For the Wall Street Journal, this is Mark Scheffler in New York.
So that was just one of the many videos you can find. If you're more interested, there are tons more you can go look at. Do you have any questions?
Has your opinion of him changed since you did the interview with him? Or anything that you found out that you didn't know?
Well, not really, because like I said, I've known him since I was really little. So I hear all these stories when we go over to their house. You know, he'll tell me he's eaten like all these weird things, and he's been in a lot of situations where he's been put his life on the line and things like that. So he's always been pretty, I guess, important to our U.S. military. So I've always seen him like that because he's been like that since I was little.
But there's also a lot of things he can't tell.
Yes, like I said, he can't tell me a lot of the things. So when I was interviewing him, I was like, if you can't tell me, I was like, I understand. I was like, just answer it the best you can. Is that all the questions? Thank you.